Hey, Matt.
Hey, Mike.
Shall we do the podcast?
Let's cast some pods.
Cast in pods. 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to Hacking the Grepson. It is another exciting episode in the world of game development, which is what we are currently focusing our efforts on. And while we have been talking about how to make the game that we're going to make, we've thought that maybe this week we'd do something a little bit different and talk about a different game that is in development, mainly because I know the developer and I've known them for a long time. And that game is, I'm going to butcher this because it's kind of a romanization of how you would say roller skate in Japanese, Rorasuketo.
Okay.
That is the name of the game.
It sounded good to me. I don't know.
Okay. Well, thank you. It is actually, you know what? Instead of reinventing the tagline for this game, I'm just going to use the thing from the website that we have made to kind of market it. Rorasuketo is a ghost sports adventure being created and designed by Cam Norcross and co-written by Tiffany Van Penen. Inspired by and orchestrated with classic SNES sounds, the soundtrack was written by moi. So, Rorasuketo was started back in 2019. It is being done by my friend Cam, who I've known for many, many, many years. They've wanted to make... They're a musician, artist, person just like us, likes to create things, and they wanted to create a game about 7 years ago. And why did they choose a ghost sports adventure? Well, they themselves are, I don't know if it's retired or just ex, or they don't currently do roller derby, but they did at one point, and they got really into it. And so that kind of became a framework for this game that kind of takes a journey through mental health through the world of roller derby. Basically, it's about a girl named Katie who lives alone, is unemployed, and struggling to find her reason to live. She's, you actually open up the game, because this is in the demo, you open up in a mental health institution of some sort, and you meet this woman named Stella, who you later find out is actually a ghost. And it's a ghost in kind of a Japanese folklore ghost kind of way. I forget exactly.
Is it like a yokai kind of thing?
Yes, like a yokai, exactly. And
I'm talking mythology and folklore. Great.
yeah, and that ghost kind of ends up becoming sort of like a helper to you, and they help you kind of figure out your life and find a reason to live. And they do that by introducing you to roller derby, which also happened to the developer in their life. They also started. So it's not
a ghost introduced them to roller derby.
They did not have a ghost buddy in the real world, but this is sort of their way of putting it into a video game. But they did start doing roller derby several years ago, and it brought a lot of good things to them, some bad things too. And so I think I don't want to speak completely for them, but in general, I think that was kind of the inspiration for where this game came about. But in a more technical way, it is a kind of an old school JRPG, Japanese role-playing game, in the style of the first thing that always jumps in my mind is like Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior, except it's not. It's closer to Earthbound, I guess, really,
okay.
Because it takes place. You're a human person, and you are not fighting with swords and armor, and you're not battling monsters, but you're in a real town walking around with shops and stuff, and you have a home, and you go on quests, and you meet people, and all that kind of stuff. It's on Steam now. It's not done. It's supposed to be done by the end of the year. But they've also been... And the reason why I have knowledge of it is because they asked me to write the soundtrack. So I wrote the soundtrack to it many years ago, and so that's kind of just been playing as they've been developing it on and off for 7 years. I think it's cool. I think it's really awesome that they stuck with it, because just, we're trying to get like the basics of a game of any game off the ground. And they went to a this is done in Game Maker, which is specifically for making this type of game. So if you
I know there's Game Maker and there's RPG Maker, and I don't know the difference. Are they the same thing?
Let's see. Hold on a second. Let me double check. So this is being made in RPG Maker. Sorry, which I think is an offshoot of Game Maker.
I believe they are. I'm trying to figure out what the difference is. So Game Maker does more than RPG.
Yes.
RPG Maker is for like faster prototyping within.
Yes.
In just 2D.
Yeah, and even though they have a similar name, I don't think they're by the same company or anything. I think the RPG Maker, it looks like the initial release was 1992. So it's been around for 30 plus years, just it was like it was created when probably like Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games were still being made. So that's actually kind of impressive. Yeah, it is specifically for making this kind of game, which is the kind of old school turn-based RPG. So if you've ever played a Final Fantasy, you kind of know what we're talking about. And so yeah, the downside to using an IDE like that is that you probably can't easily make any other type of game in it. But the good side is that if you want to make this type of game, they got you covered. Like it kind of comes with all of the creature features and ideas and frameworks and setups to help you make a game like that.
Certainly seems like it would skip a lot of steps for us in our game making ability.
Yeah, well, if we wanted to make an RPG, I personally am not really interested in RPGs like this anymore. Believe me, I played a bunch of them when I was a kid. I played all the Dragon Warriors, all the Final Fantasies. Like they, for whatever reason, my brain was very happy playing that type of game for hours and hours and hours and hours. I've tried to play a game in this style in the last 10 years, and my patience just it doesn't work anymore for it. Especially if it has random battles or something like that. I can't handle random battles anymore. And the grinding of just slowly fighting enemies to build up your power so you're strong enough to go to the next thing. Nope.
I'm looking at it on the Steam page, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Although, oddly, the things that it's being compared to are all... I don't know the polite word for it. Porny?
Yeah, no,
it's like a bunch of porn games and then also Octopath Traveler, which is an amazing game.
I mean, there's such a fine line between Octopath and your typical hentai game, right?
Yes, I would like to play Thought on Trial. It's just great.
When they put the game up on Steam, they pointed that out immediately, that you want to play more games like this? Here, try this. And it was, all of those kinds of games. I mean, that means it's in a niche that's not huge, so it's hard to compare it to, stuff you've heard of. But I think it's all tag based. Like the tags they used, because the game that they're working on has dating, has affection.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Then it immediately thinks, "Oh, you want to play hentai games?" No.
Looking at the artwork, it is very clearly not anything like that.
Yeah.
Artwork looks great.
That's
I
the
like
thing,
that style.
It's not based on what it looks like. It's not based on how it plays. It's based on the tags. And if someone else put a tag on their game, then it's going to match you with that tag. So, but regardless, it's not like that game. It's a totally above board, but mature in the, like I said, it has a lot of mental health themes that it deals with. So it's not like a I don't know. It's got some heavy stuff to deal with if you get into it. But, like I said, I think a lot of that's just coming from their life. And so they're just kind of speaking to what they know. And I think that makes it unique. I think that makes it interesting. And, they first started talking about roller derby for the first time ever. I've never watched a roller derby match. I couldn't explain it to you. They've tried to explain it to me multiple times, and I still don't quite understand it. But if you play the game, it might teach you. There's a free demo that you can try that has at least about, I think, in it that will kind of teach you the basics. So I don't know. It's out of my wheelhouse in terms of what I know about and even what I currently enjoy playing. But as someone who likes to create things, sticking with a project for 7 years, and they've been updating a dev blog about it, which is why I thought it would be interesting to talk about. There's a lot of depth even in something that's been done millions of times, which is the JRPG type of game. It has a very specific kind of flow and the way that things interact with each other, and especially of this era, like what things look like. It's all sprite based. There's no models. They've talked about the scripting that they've had to do and the systems they've had to put in, and as far as I know, they have never really developed a game other than this. And so I think a lot of their learning how to program is being done in the game, in the RPG Maker world, which uses a kind of its own scripting language, which I think is proprietary, but it looks, similar enough to other programming languages that, you would be able to pick it up. I'm excited for it to be done because I know it has been a long road, and much like we said in our last episode, the two hardest things about projects are starting them and finishing them. And they got the starting point, and now they're still in the meat that is fun, but also they're at the end of the meat where you're getting to that other slice of bread that you need for this to be a full sandwich, and it's that 80-20 rule. Where that last
that analogy got a little bit away from you.
What's that?
That analogy got away from you a little bit.
It
but
did. much like a slippery sandwich. Yeah, yeah. I it doesn't inspire me to make an RPG, but it definitely inspires me to keep working on a game because if they can stick with it for 7 years, we can stick with it for a year and get something that looks vaguely like a game. I mean, this one is almost done. It's really just doing a lot of the final scripting of bouts. There's a few bouts, like roller derby bouts you have to do. And
it looks immediately like a finished game. Like, looking at the page for it, I wouldn't assume that there was a ton left to do on it. I like the style. It does harken back very much to Super Nintendo, which I never owned a Super Nintendo. So I particularly like this style because it seems so much more advanced than like original Nintendo, that I always appreciated a little bit more. But I had a Sega Genesis instead, so I got a different style of 16-bit graphics.
You were Sonic,
but I really like the style.
Yep, Marioing.
Yeah, because it did what Nintendo don't. Right. I listened to the music a little bit on this. Good job.
Thank you.
Assuming that's your stuff playing in the background.
It is.
I dig it. I will want to play this when it comes out, I think. Assuming it plays on any type of machine that I have. And I'm not really into this style of game, but, it's something you worked on, so I'll be down. I think it's interesting so this friend of yours, do they have like a software dev background at all?
No, not to my knowledge.
So that's okay. So it would be interesting to know like what they thought about RPG Maker and like its ease of use for a non-software developer. I think one of the reasons you and I don't want to go into using those is because we are developers and we want that more hands-on experience, like deeper down. I would love to have something like this to generate a project that then I could play around with.
Yeah.
At the level that I want to.
Yeah, I'm looking at their most recent dev blog, which is all about the affection mechanics in the game.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
Specifically in RPG Maker, and I'm looking at the screenshots, and we've got a screenshot of a bunch of variables. We've got a grid-based scene, like a room in a house or something. And then we've got some kind of control statements, and they're talking about how there's this big long system that when you're kind of in a room talking to another character, that it goes through and checks and sees if you've done certain things or not, and it's a lot of if else, which I mean that's a lot of logic in programming. It's just if it did this, then do this. If not, then do this other thing, But it's all in these menus, And it's reminding me of Defold. It's reminding me of Godot. It's an IDE that is built for you to make a thing in. So it's like you have to know. Oh, I want to make a Super Nintendo RPG. Well, no one is probably going to say use Unity. Like you could make Final Fantasy 500 in Unity, because I'm sure that's probably what they use to make it nowadays. Yeah, but if you wanted to make like a recreation of like Final Fantasy, 2/4 from the 90s, I would say this is a much better tool, because it's like, oh,
it seems like it.
Yeah, we know you want to make this kind of thing. We know what is involved with that. We have the stuff set up, so it has kind of a wizardy look to it, like you've been saying.
And I think that's cool. I like that idea. I haven't looked into RPG Maker. I downloaded both RPG Maker and Game Maker, RPG Maker forever ago. So I haven't looked at it in like 20 years. So it's probably better than when I looked at it. And Game Maker, I think I downloaded when it first came out. So also likewise, I have a bad habit of getting these kind of things early in their development, like in their release phase, and being like, it's not very well, it doesn't have all the things I want, and then never looking at it again. Meanwhile, they continue to progress developmentally, and I come back. Like the Go language was like that for me. I looked at it, I was like, meh, and moved on, and now like 15 years later or whatever it is since it came out, it's like, oh no, this is actually a pretty robust language, and it does this, it's got that, and I like it. It's a community, which is surprisingly important when you're developing things.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would say surprisingly at this point. Like it's because I think that speaks to programming languages and programming language and ecosystems in general. Like it's harder to just pick up a language that doesn't have a community, which means it doesn't have people talking about it and battle testing it and fixing bugs and releasing libraries and whatnot for it. I mean, it's not impossible, but it makes you think back to when, for example, they were making these games originally, probably in some form of assembly, and there was no internet, and if your assembly broke or wouldn't compile, you couldn't just Google like, why did I get this error message? You had to figure it out, and the only people who knew were probably the people in your office that were also working on it and figuring it out.
Yep.
So
that's what the computer lab was for in school.
Right. That was your community.
I'd just go sit there and hope that one of my friends would show up.
Yeah,
and be like, hey, man, what's happening with this? What am I being stupid about? Yeah. Although more often than not, I was the person that people were coming to for that. And I was like, okay, that's great, but I'm stuck on something. Does anybody know this thing? I don't know.
Yeah. I was also looking at, we were talking about how this Game Maker and RPG Maker have very similar names, but yeah, they are different. Game Maker came out in 1999, which was like 7 years later, and was created by this guy Mark Overmars. That's a cool name, but was bought out by Yo-Yo Games in 2007, and I think they probably made it better and more robust, et cetera, et cetera. And whereas RPG Maker, like I said, was made in 1992 by some author called ASCII. And yeah. Interesting. Written in JavaScript, HTML5, and Ruby. That's what RPG Maker is built in. That's
a weird combination of stuff. Although, given that time period, yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Or maybe that's probably not what it was built in. That was probably what you can write using in the RPG Maker. Because I remember, I think Cam was actually talking to me about Ruby in the scripting language. Anyway, yeah, so, I just thought it would be an interesting idea to do a shout out to this game that has gone through quite a bit of development and is, except for me writing the soundtrack and their friend Tiffany helping with the story, as far as I know, they have been developing this by themselves the whole time, which even using an IDE that is specifically for making this type of game, it still can take a long time, and you still lose momentum, and you have, they have a life outside of this that they're also doing, and, they don't have time to just work on this every day for, 10 hours like it was a job. So you pick at it here and there, And at least, if you're making this type of game and you're using this kind of tool, you can like do new game and you immediately have the bare bones of an RPG, whereas these other tools that we're trying to do, finding that like new button for the basic of a type that we want to make, is a little harder because they're a little more general purpose. So those are kind of the, pros and cons of using something like this versus something like that. But for their purposes, I think this was exactly the kind of tool you'd want to use for something like this. And I would never have said, use Unity or use Godot to make a Super Nintendo RPG. Yeah, so I don't know. We haven't really talked about blogging specifically about game dev. Writing about writing games and whether
writing about writing.
Yeah, like whether that inspires you or not. I don't know if it inspires them or keeps the fire going. Like I know in terms of my own blogging, just about development and programming and stuff, like I'm very, very hit or miss in terms of, because I feel like I always, if I'm going to write something, it has to be like meaningful. I can't just, it's not microblogging to me. It's not just like I had a random thought and I put it up there. Like I want it to be a fully formed thought and researched and double checked and, and be able to look back on it and be like, yeah, that was a solid piece of writing that I did. But it's hard to get that out of me these days, especially when we don't even have, anything yet to really talk about. But I'm curious about your thoughts about whether you like reading development blogs in general about people working on things, whether that does anything for you or whether you wish you did it more or you've done it in the past. I don't know.
I don't really read blogs. I used to. I don't know why I don't anymore, other than the standard answer of time.
It's not a time killer for you? It's not like a thing you do when you just have time to kill?
What's that? What is this time to kill you speak of? I typically find that I like the idea of writing a blog, and as soon as I get that idea, I immediately don't want to do it. Like
So
I like it
again?
conceptually. No, it's not even that. It starts to feel like a chore, which is a big problem in my life generally. Is once something starts to feel like a chore, I have zero interest in doing it. In fact, whatever the opposite of interest is, I have that like a repulsion almost. And it's one of those things that makes, going off topic a little bit here, but it's one of the things that makes almost anything as an adult more difficult. It is a chore to do most things as an adult compared to as a child. Like if I want to set up a TTRPG game with my friends, it's a lot of like coordination and collaboration. And then it's like, okay, we need to keep momentum going. Doing a podcast with you, right? It's easier because just two of us. But it's like, okay, trying to keep things from becoming a chore is hard. And doing something like a blog can very easily become that, even though I like writing, but I would need to be inspired about what to write. And I think like you were saying, I'm a bit of a perfectionist about that kind of thing. And I would want it to be, I'd want to make it interesting, not just from a writing perspective, but I probably want to throw like images in there. And as soon as I start doing any of that stuff, I will go down the rabbit hole and be like, this is annoying.
Yeah.
And I won't want to do it.
Well, I'm
I
curious.
need an editor.
That's sort of a segue into, do you think if you had an audience that you would be more inspired to do it? If you knew people were like, oh, when's the next Matt Stance coming out, Matt and Stance. When's the next Matt and Stance coming out? Because I know I would. I lose interest because I can only conjure so much self-interest in it just because if it's sort of fun, I may get around to it. But like after a while, it's hard to keep it going without someone else feeding that energy. I mean, it's sort of like how I could probably never keep a solo podcast going because I don't like hearing my voice that much and I don't have enough to say just by myself, but having you as a sounding board keeps the energy going. And as soon as one
it makes it more fun. And
and it's more fun.
It's less of a chore. It's less of a chore and more of like, oh, well, I need to do this so that I can, so that Mike isn't prevented from doing it, which isn't a chore in my mind, the way that like something like a solo project that I'm working on becomes a chore. It's like,
Yeah.
I guess I'll go do that thing. Especially when there's a huge learning curve to it, right? And I think that's the problem I'm running into a lot with game dev right now is there's a big learning curve to everything, and I can't just go and do a thing. I have to go and learn about a thing to do the thing. And at my age and my energy level, that's harder and harder to do every day.
Do you think that we will actually make a game
Yes.
before we die? Like, not as ghosts?
Yes. Yes. Well, someday our children will move out and we'll just be able to, and our brains will be hooked up to some sort of AI mechanic that gets us into the computers, and we'll just tell it what to do and the game will exist.
Yeah.
I do actually, that is a thing that's probably going to happen before we get to like a really like polished game, is it will make more sense to do via AI than do by hand.
Yeah. Do you look forward to playing a game that you have put into the world, or do you want to just put it into the world and then period, done, wipe your hands of it?
I want to make a game that I want to play.
Okay. All right.
Like that would also be true if like I was making a movie or writing a book. But with a game, I think, especially if you can get some like randomness or difficulty in there, I think it's more interesting to play your own game than it is to read your own book, probably, because you know how the book is going to end.
Yeah, and the game, by definition, unless it's like a visual novel, you know, it goes in unknown ways.
Yep.
So you can't predict what the gameplay will be like, whereas a book, you know how it's going to go no matter what. Yeah. This whole conversation is making me existential about just like, you know, making games, putting stuff out there. Do we even need to make a game? Do I even want to play a game that I made beyond just being able to say that I made a game, you know? And like when I'm talking with, you know, back to Rorasuketo, talking with Cam, and when the fire is starting to burn out and I'm trying to help stoke it back, you know, over the years, trying not to let that kind of existential ennui come out of me, because it's hard not to feel that way sometimes when there's so much media already. Like, what do I need to put another one out into the world? But also, like, you know, if everybody thought that way, then, you know, nothing would get made ever. And also I want to I think there is value in the hard work and determination and stick-to-itiveness of a project, because I think that's one of the reasons why I tend to not go a long time on projects, because I know I will burn out and lose interest. And so I try to put a capper on it at 95% or something just to be done. You know, like every album I've ever done is it's never done. It's never like, oh, okay, that's perfect, couldn't do another thing to it, and then, you know, hit publish. It's just like, I don't know, I've spent enough time on it, it's good enough, I guess, and then move on. And then I'll listen to it a year later and hear all the imperfections and stuff, but I'm like, well, that's just, that was just part of it. That was the journey.
But,
that was the snapshot.
What is it? Perfection's the enemy of done, right? Right. 95% is a great goal.
Yeah.
I 80% honestly is probably the right answer. It's
A solid C
the
minus.
80-20 rule. 80 is a B minus. That's still good.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
B minus. Okay, solid
70,
B minus.
yeah. But like 80, you know, the 80-20 rule. So it's like, okay, if I can get this working 80% as well, because then that also gives you that 20%. Like if you're still interested in doing it after you've released it, you can always fix it. Now that's more true for games than music, I imagine. Because I imagine you don't release a song and then be like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back and re-release it, version 2, unless that's the thing. I follow, you know, I'm a patron, I guess, on Patreon of a couple different people that I know in the world that actually that put out music.
Yeah.
For very nerdy things. One is for D&D and one is just like remixes in like synthwave of video game music, which is enjoyable in and of itself. And like I do see them sometimes put out like updates to old tracks, but it feels less common than you would see with something like a game where it's like, here's a patch, new stuff. Like if I got a patch to a book I read, I'd be like, really? You want me to go back and reread the book? because you added a sentence here. Like, but if you add like more to the story, like a
Yeah.
sequel, I think that's
Yeah.
what that looks like. Another song, perhaps.
It's delicious, this idea of patching a book and adding some like updated sentences to chapter 3 and 5 that you felt were a little wonky. That's an interesting thought, that you can't really do that or expect people to like reread the chapter because you changed a sentence somewhere. But like, as far as updating music, I often want to. I often think about, and if I've just put it out and it hasn't been out in the world very long, like I might have, this happens all the time where I forget to put the ending of the song at the right spot, and so it has like, I don't know, 20 seconds of extra silence at the end that I didn't mean for it to have, because that's just what the project had. Going in there, chopping that out, re-uploading that's something that I've probably done and would do again. But in terms of like, I don't know, completely changing the song structure of something, that's a new song. That would just become another song or a remix.
It's a remix.
Yeah. That's you don't remix books. You remix songs. You don't remix movies. I mean, there's like director's cuts that are longer, have more scenes, but you wouldn't you don't patch a movie in the same way that you patch code, because generally code is more of a vibe fix, or if it's a literal bug, like I clicked on this thing and it crashes the thing, I'm gonna fix that. I'm not gonna like make a whole new version of the software because that one button press broke something. Like, because it's more of a it's less of a creative fix and more of a functional fix. So that's different. Whereas music, like, ooh, I forgot to use the right guitar. I used a Fender when I meant to use a Gibson on that track. I'm not going to like put a patch out that changes the guitar. Although I love this idea. This you may have just opened up a whole new world of ideas to just do because you can.
You're welcome. Tolkien did famously change The Hobbit from his initial writing to a second, so that it matched more what he was going for, specifically around the ring for Lord of the Rings. Like the whole scene with Bilbo and Gollum. I don't remember if he changed it entirely or if he just added the like note at the beginning of like Bilbo is an untrustworthy narrator. But so I guess it is done, but it's just not as common.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, you can really only get away with that if you're a big name author with a book that's famous. Like, I think most of the time people just wouldn't notice or care if you updated your random crime novel number 5, 6, 7.
I have a friend who writes short stories and has put out the same short story multiple times, and like, let me try writing it from this perspective, because he's still kind of like figuring out how he wants to tell the whole story. I think that's interesting, except I've now read it so many times and it's changed so many times. I don't remember what the actual plot and characters are anymore, because I've been reading it since it was like a page.
Yeah.
It's just as a beta reader.
There's definitely something to be said with when you have the technology to allow for the user to do more stuff with your work. I mean, video games themselves kind of really started out this idea of like, I can put something out in the world and I don't know exactly what people are going to do with it because it's so variable, versus when you're just writing a book or you make a TV show or a movie. Yeah. But also there's this like sanctity, I think, and not everybody believes in this. I mean, I'm still someone who believes in like, if a person puts out an album or a game or whatever that you should try to at least play it in the method it was intended, rather than immediately setting it on shuffle or modding it in a video game thing. I mean, those are all fun.
I always listen to an album from start to finish at least once.
Yeah.
Before I will ever put it on shuffle.
Yeah. But there are some people who just like, no, I mean, once it's in my hands, I should be able to do whatever I want with it. And you should. Yeah. But I think there's something lost in the transaction between artist and consumer when you do that. But that's just me, and I'm probably a dying breed, and in the future everybody is going to AI vibe code whatever media they want to watch or experience, and there will be no artist consumer wall. Everybody will be both, and so this was actually something that came up when I was watching, and I highly recommend everybody watch it, even though it's like an hour and a half, and I know not everybody will. But this video from Adam Neely, who is a musician and a YouTuber. He's in a band. He makes his own. They make their own music, but he also does a lot of just YouTubing about the music industry or music theory. And he did one recently on AI. And one of the things that was really interesting about it is that people. It was all about Suno, which is the way to make your own music, AI generated. And how all the people who
is that how you pronounce that? I've seen that written down. I've never heard it out loud.
Suno.
I know what you're talking about.
I mean, a large part of it was just him talking about Suno and about the CEO and his philosophy on music, and how the ability to make music. But I feel like this can just be spread out into all media. The ability to make media versus consume it is slowly going to become where there's no barrier right now, as opposed to people thinking, oh, I'm just more creative than other people. I have that gift, so I'm going to be the creator and everybody else will be the consumer. Well, once the technology gets good enough, that will go away, and instead it will be replaced by taste. So ability will go away and taste will be the only thing that matters. And he was obviously, pushing back on that as a musician and worried what that means for the future. But it just makes me think about how the people who are making the music, they don't have influences anymore. Their influences are themselves. They don't have role models. Like, I can look up to like Jimi Hendrix or, Jimmy Page or Joe Satriani as a guitarist and be like, yeah, they inspire me. I listen to their stuff. It seemed amazing. I want to play. I want to learn. I want to get better. But like, if all the music you're listening to is the stuff you're making, which also was a slight against people who make music and listen to their own music, which I took to heart because I do that a lot of the time. Because
I don't
much
see
like
anything wrong with that.
You want to make a game that you want to play. I want to make music that I like to listen to. I mean, it just
I want to put the kind of art out into the world that I want to consume.
Right. And so what's wrong with consuming the stuff you make, except that if that's all anybody is ever doing, there's no feedback loop of influence going on, because everybody is just making exactly what they want and not having any outside influences change that. We're just becoming this one amorphous blob of ourself, and nothing else is getting in to affect it. So I thought that was an interesting idea among many, besides the fact that everybody who's running these generative AIs are basically billionaire techno-fascists. So that's also worrisome. But, coming just to bring this back to Rorasuketo.
I was like, we're getting real deep on this,
well,
this episode about the roller derby.
Because it's all connected, man. It's all connected. Charlie pointing at the thing in the red tape, which was actually in this last dev vlog. That's what made me think of it.
That is actually a really funny end to that to that article.
No,
I got a genuine laugh out of me.
I love Cam. Cam is they're a wonderful person who, but to bring it back, like, making an old school retro game in 2026, which has seen, a huge, spring of stuff, because once the tools got good enough, like, lots of people made this because everybody remembers their childhood and nostalgia and what they liked to play as a kid. Why wouldn't I want to make that now that I have the tools? And so I'm glad it exists. I'm just like, it also seems like something that's codified so well that this is exactly the kind of thing that AI will be able to pump out by the million soon enough, if not already. And so, but the knowing that Cam made it, knowing that they put effort into it and that it comes from their lived experience, is what makes this specific one in the billion that have been made probably unique and special and worth putting out into the world. And that brings it back around to us making our game. no matter how many platformers or overhead Zeldas that exist, none have been made by us and our lived experience. And
Exactly.
hopefully the people that know us at the very least will be interested in that because it came from us and not recycled machine code.
Yeah. I always like to try the things that my friends make. Some people make a lot of it and I don't get to it all. I'm certainly not listening to all of the music that you've produced in the
That's okay.
30 years that I've known you or whatever it is. But I do listen to them occasionally.
That's good. I realize that I put stuff out because it's in my head and I need to get it out. And if it brings joy to other people, all the better. But in terms of like thinking that it's going to be the thing I do and it's going to make me millions and I'm going to be a star and everybody's going to love me for it. Yeah, that's been tempered by life and experience. And, I would try to put myself in their shoes. And I'm like, say, if I met someone and they said, oh, hey, I make music. And they sent me a link to their Bandcamp and it had like 50 albums on it. I'd be like, oh, hey, that's cool. And then I'd probably move on about my day. Yep. It's impenetrable even to me sometimes to look at that. And so I try to spend some time curating and filtering it because I know it can be a big wall for a lot of people.
So what you're saying is we should only have one game ever.
Yeah.
Then no one will have
they'll never have
no one will have to think any harder.
The paradox of abundance because
exactly. Because no abundance.
I mean, I was telling Cam this the other day. There are so Oh, right. We were talking about this podcast, actually, and how they wished that they listened to it more. Well, they might listen to this one. But there's just...
Sorry for talking about such weird things on the episode about your stuff.
There's so much of it, and I was like, I understand. There's too much. Like, there are podcasts I know that are amazing, and I just don't listen to them because I don't know why. Ideally, I should choose whatever is... the consensus of society is like, this is the best thing to do this stuff. And I still won't do it because I'm just like, I'll get around to it later.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Well, this is a good chat. Cam, thank you for making Rorasuketo. I hope it gets done this year as you wish. I look forward to playing it. I actually promised them that if they finish it and it goes out, that I will do my first ever Let's Play, where I go on YouTube and I'm like, all right, today we're playing Rorasuketo. I have never done that before. I might even put a face cam on. I don't know. Let's play. And then I go because...
Cool. Do it, man.
Because I don't know about you, but that's how I find out about games and find out that I care about them is I like to watch other people play them and be excited about them because that filters out the million that are released every day. So
I don't know that is true for me.
No? So how do you find new
people
games,
tell me
then?
people tell me about them or I see an ad on Steam.
Oh my god, the advertising
like
works.
I'll be in a community like I'm in the Metroidvania community on our subreddit.
Yeah.
And so like I'll see people talk about a thing there and I'll be like, "Oh, that's worth checking out." But I do miss I think a lot of games. A lot of the times I'll find out because like you guys on our Slack channel will be like, "Oh, I just started playing this game. It's really neat." I'm like, "Oh, what's this?" So I found out about Balatro.
All right. See, I would have thought that like Balatro was basically part of the fabric of society at this point, and how could you miss it?
Oh, at this point, I feel like that's true. But at the time I first played it, that was not the case.
Did you finish Mio?
I have not finished it, no, because it got too hard.
Did you finish Silksong?
Nope, same reason.
Is that just how games die for you?
Yeah, a lot of times as they just get too hard or they get... It's not even that they get too hard. It's they get too frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know with Mio, I can beat the next boss after throwing myself at it for a couple hours.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. It's not interesting to me. I just want to go explore. So then I started playing a game where I can explore more. And I was like, now I want to do that.
Even with the assists turned on?
Like I said, I know if I keep throwing myself at it, because the assist I have on it specifically, every time you die at a boss, it makes the boss a little bit weaker.
Yeah.
So.
That's something to keep in mind for our game if we get to a point. I mean, I feel like between the two of us, we're not going to add bosses, so that's not really like going to be a thing. But there probably should be some ramping of difficulty, but not so much that it ever gets you to the point where you're like, nah, it's too tedious to even try this. I'm moving on. You never want to get above that line.
Something I liked that happened a couple of times in Silk Song, and probably could have happened more to make me enjoy it more, is there was like an NPC that would show up sometimes and help me in battles. I was like, more of this. Like, that gives me incentive to go out and do like the story part of the game. Go out and talk to NPCs, get them on your side. And then they, like, if the game sees that you're struggling with a fight, have NPCs join it and be like, we got your back, or do something.
That's kind of
something
cool.
to keep in mind if we get there. Yeah,
that's cool. All right.
Anyway.
Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of Hacking the Grepson. If you wish to listen to more of our episodes, you can go to hackingthegrepson.com. If you'd like more information about Rorasuketo, you can go to RORASUKETO.win, which has a link to the demo. And I should probably put a link to the Steam page on here, which I haven't yet. And also has the soundtrack, which has been lovingly translated into both kind of English romanization of the Japanese versions of the song titles and the actual katakana and hiragana, because that was fun. That was actually a thing we did. I actually talked with someone, a friend of Cam's that knew more Japanese and helped me figure out, some areas where Google Translate was not quite enough. So I think it's pretty solid, which was fun. I don't know. The Japanese part of it is, I've done a lot of Japanese on Duolingo. I'm a moderate fan of Japanese culture. It was fun to kind of make that. Although the game is in English, it's not in Japanese. It's just kind of like, a cool thematic element to the game. So yeah, go there, check that out. And until the next time we talk at you, we now return you to your regularly scheduled lives already in progress.
Bye, folks.